How to claim the 5 locations that become fortresses when the world evacuates, and more importantly, why you die trying to hold anywhere else. Listen, when the sirens wailed, when the highways turned into parking lots of the damned, when your neighbors trampled each other for the last gallon of gas, where did they go? They went out, away, towards some mythical safe zone that doesn't exist, toward relatives 3 states over who probably shot them on sight, toward the mountains, the countryside, the coast, anywhere but here. And you know what they left behind? Everything. The cities, the infrastructure, the warehouses, the hospitals, the power stations, the bones of civilization, picked clean by panicked idiots who thought a tent in the woods would save them from nuclear winter, bioweapons, or whatever fresh hell turned the sky that particular shade of you're screwed. But before we dive into which ruins will keep you alive while everyone else becomes fertilizer, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now, because if you're watching this, you're either preparing for the worst or you're already living it, and either way, you're going to want the rest of this series. Subscribe, ring the bell, bookmark this channel like your life depends on it, because when the infrastructure collapses and the internet dies, you'll wish you downloaded every single video I've ever made. Do it now, I'll wait. Good. Now let's talk about survival. Here's the truth they don't tell you in those cute prepper forums with their cute little bug-out bags. The wilderness will kill you faster than the apocalypse will. No shelter from radiation, no medicine, no walls. Just you, a campfire, and 1,000 ways to die from exposure, starvation, or the thing that's hunting you through the trees at 3 in the morning. But the places everyone abandoned, the ones they ran from, those are fortresses, not castles, not bunkers, fortresses. If you know which ones to take, if you know how to hold them, if you're smart enough, ruthless enough, and just unhinged enough to look at a crumbling building in a dead city and think, yeah, that's mine now. This is the Fortress Protocol. 5 locations, 5 strategies, 5 chances to survive when everyone else is freezing to death in a ditch because they thought going off-grid meant anything other than dying slowly with a view. You're going to learn which ruins to claim, how to defend them, how to extract resources from their bones, and why. Why the survivors who stayed in the cities are the ones who will rebuild civilization, while the rugged individualists are becoming fertilizer in the national forest. The world ended, everyone evacuated, you're going to stay, and you're going to win. But first, let's talk about what happened to everyone who ran. Picture it, the emergency broadcast system crackling through every phone, every radio, every screen. Evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. The kind of announcement that turns rational humans into a stampede. Within hours, the highways are gridlocked, cars overheating, people abandoning vehicles, taking only what they can carry, shoving children and elderly out of the way because survival instinct is just a polite way of saying panic-induced sociopathy. They flee to the countryside, where there's no food because modern farming is industrialized, no clean water because wells are contaminated or dry, and no shelter because that cute barn collapsed in 1987, where they'll fight over scraps, form warlord communes, and die of dysentery like it's the Oregon Trail. They flee to the mountains where it's cold, where game is scarce because 10,000 other refugees had the same idea, where altitude sickness and exposure kill you in your sleep, and where the wildlife is now competing with desperate humans for territory. Spoiler alert, the wildlife wins. They flee to the coast, where rising tides, hurricanes, and contaminated water make it a death trap, where raiders from the sea roll in like Viking rejects, where you're either flooded, sunburned, or murdered for your fishing net. They thought they were being smart. They thought cities were death traps, too many people, too much chaos, too many targets. They were wrong. Because cities have infrastructure, water treatment plants, solar arrays, hospital stockpiles, underground tunnels, concrete walls, systems that don't care if the world ended, systems that still work if you know how to run them. And the people, the crowds they were so afraid of, gone. The cities are empty now, and empty cities are the most valuable real estate in the apocalypse. You just have to know which buildings to take, which rooms to fortify, which supplies to loot, which systems to reactivate. You have to think like a warlord, an engineer, and a scavenger all at once. You have to become the keeper of ruins. And it starts with understanding the 5 locations that everyone abandoned and why you're going to live in them while the evacuees are dying in tents made of hope and duct tape. So grab your crowbar, grab your map, grab whatever's left of your sanity. We're going fortress hunting. Before we dive into which fortresses to claim, you need to understand why the conventional wisdom, flee to the woods, is a suicide pact written by people who've never spent a winter without central heating. Let's dismantle the myth. Cities are dangerous during collapse, during the panic, during the riots, during the looting. that 72-hour window when everyone's losing their minds, fighting over the last can of beans, setting fires because they're scared and stupid. But after the evacuation, after the initial die-off, cities are ghost towns, and ghost towns are safe. Safer than the wilderness, safer than the rural communes that will devolve into feudalism, safer than the highways where roving gangs pick off stragglers like it's a hobby. Why? Because cities have resources the wilderness doesn't. Water infrastructure, reservoirs, treatment plants, pipes. Even if the power's out, water towers rely on gravity. You can pressurize a system with manual pumps. You can filter, purify, and store more water in one urban building than you'd find in a month of forest foraging. Medical supplies, hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, veterinary offices, dental practices, truckloads of antibiotics, painkillers, surgical tools, and equipment that will save your life when you inevitably cut yourself on rusty rebar and need a tetanus shot. Defensible structures, concrete, steel, brick, multi-story buildings with choke points, rooftop visibility, and walls that can't be burned down by raiders with torches. Try defending a log cabin against 20 armed scavengers. Now try defending a fortified hospital with one entrance and a sniper nest on the roof. See the difference? Solar panels and backup generators, office buildings, schools, hospitals, half of them have solar arrays installed pre-collapse. Rooftop panels still work, batteries still store charge, generators still run if you can find diesel. You can have power while the forest dwellers are rubbing sticks together. Stockpiles, warehouses, distribution centers, government supply depots, food, tools, clothing, fuel, months of supplies per location, just waiting to be claimed by someone smart enough to break in and ruthless enough to hold it. The wilderness has none of this. The wilderness has trees, dirt, maybe a deer if you're lucky and can actually hunt, which, spoiler, most people can't. The wilderness is a starvation sentence with a nice view, but here's the kicker. The wilderness is also crowded now. Every idiot with a backpack and a copy of Survivable had the same brilliant idea. They all fled to the same forests, the same mountains, the same remote areas that are now overrun with refugees competing for the same scarce resources. You know what happens when 10,000 people try to live off a forest meant to support maybe 100? Ecological collapse. The game is hunted to extinction within weeks. The edible plants are stripped bare. The water sources are contaminated with human waste because nobody knows how to dig a proper latrine. And then the real dying starts. Starvation, disease, desperation, people turning on each other because there's not enough food to go around and morality is a luxury of the well-fed. Meanwhile, back in the city, you're sitting in a fortified library with a rooftop garden, a rain catchment system, and a solar-powered hot plate, reading books by LED light while the forest refugees are eating their boots. This is the wasteland doctrine. Population density during collapse is chaos. Population scarcity after collapse is opportunity. The cities are empty now. The competition is gone. The resources are abundant compared to the wilderness. All you have to do is claim them. And that's what the next 5 locations are. Claims, fortresses hiding in plain sight, buildings everyone fled from, structures that seem dangerous, abandoned, useless, until you see them for what they really are. Castles in the wasteland. So let's start with the first fortress. The one everyone avoids because it feels like a death trap. The one that's actually the safest place in the entire city if you know how to hold it. The hospital. And why you're going to take it, fortify it, and turn it into a command center that will make you the most powerful survivor in a 50-mile radius. But that's the next section. For now, just remember this. When everyone evacuates, the world doesn't end. It empties, and empty things can be filled. The hospital, everyone's nightmare location, the place they sprinted from when the sirens wailed, the building that, in every zombie movie, every pandemic thriller, every collapse scenario, represents ground zero for contamination, infection, and death. And they're right to be afraid. During the collapse, during those first 72 hours when the emergency rooms were overflowing with the infected, the injured, the dying, when the hallways became triage nightmares, when the staff either fled or died at their posts, when the building became a pressure cooker of biological hazard, panic, and violence. But that was then. Now the hospital is empty, and an empty hospital is the most valuable piece of real estate in the entire apocalypse. Here's why you're going to take it. Let's start with the obvious, medical supplies. Hospitals are stockpiles, not just for bandages and aspirin, for everything that keeps humans alive when modern civilization isn't around to coddle them. Antibiotics, amoxicillin, ciprofloxacin, doxycycline, Z-Paks, the stuff that stops a cut from killing you via sepsis, the difference between minor infection and amputation or death, painkillers, morphine, fentanyl patches, oxycodone, tramadol. When you're pulling shrapnel out of your leg with pliers, you'll want these. When you're bartering with other survivors, they'll kill for these. Surgical tools, scalpels, sutures, cauterizers, bone saws, 4 kits. You're not performing open heart surgery, but you are stitching wounds, draining abscesses, and extracting bullets. These tools are irreplaceable. Diagnostic equipment, stethoscopes, blood pressure cuffs, thermometers, portable ultrasounds, X-ray machines that still work if you can power them. Knowledge is survival. Knowing if someone has internal bleeding or just bruised ribs is the difference between rest and recover and dig a grave. Sterilization supplies, alcohol, iodine, hydrogen peroxide, autoclave equipment, sterile gloves, masks. You want to survive the apocalypse? Don't die of an infected hangnail because you forgot basic hygiene. But here's the real prize. Hospitals have pharmacies, and pharmacies have everything, not just medicine, chemicals. You want to purify water? Chlorine tablets, iodine solutions, sodium hypochlorite. You want to make explosives for clearing rubble or defending your perimeter. There's enough oxidizers, fuels, and reactants in a hospital pharmacy to make a chemist weep with joy or terror. You want to barter? Medicine is the currency of the apocalypse. A bottle of antibiotics is worth more than gold. A box of insulin? You just bought yourself a small army of diabetics who will defend your fortress to the death. Hospitals aren't buildings, they're treasuries. But supplies are just the start. Let's talk about why hospitals are structurally perfect for defense. Hospitals are built like bunkers. They have to be. Fire codes, earthquake resistance, infection control. These buildings are over-engineered for durability. Walls, thick concrete, ceilings, reinforced, doors, heavy gauge steel with industrial locks. You're not fortifying a wooden farmhouse here. You're claiming a fortress that was designed to withstand disasters. Most hospitals are multi-story, 3 floors minimum, 10 floors in cities. Why does that matter? Vertical defense. You don't hold the entire building. That's suicide. Too much space, too many entry points, not enough manpower. You hold 1 floor, preferably the 3rd or 4th floor. Why? Ground floor is too accessible. Every raider, scavenger, and desperate survivor will try the ground floor first. Let them. Board it up from above, trap it, make it a kill zone. Top floor is visible, exposed. If someone has a rifle and patience, they'll pick you off from a neighboring building. Plus, rooftop access means aerial vulnerability, drones, helicopters, or just someone with a grappling hook and bad intentions. Middle floors are the sweet spot, high enough that ground entry is difficult, low enough that you're not exposed, defensible staircases, long hallways that funnel attackers into choke points where one person with a weapon can hold off a dozen. You barricade the stairwells, you trap the elevators, you create a single point of entry that you control, monitor, and defend. Anyone trying to reach you has to fight through a vertical maze while you rain hell from above. Even if you're not living on the roof, you need roof access. Why? Line of sight. You can see for miles, approaching threats, smoke signals, other survivors, movement. You have tactical awareness that ground-level survivors don't. Communication. Set up a radio antenna. Signal mirrors. Flags. You can communicate with other survivor groups, establish trade networks, or call for help if things go sideways. Solar panels. Lots of modern hospitals already have solar arrays on the roof. If they don't, the roof is a perfect place to install scavenge panels. Flat, unobstructed, maximum sun exposure. You can generate power while everyone else is burning furniture. Rainwater collection. Roofs are massive catchment surfaces. Rig tops, gutters, barrels. You can collect thousands of gallons of water per year. Filter it, purify it, store it. You just solved your water crisis. Emergency escape. If the hospital is overrun, the roof is your exit. Zip lines to adjacent buildings, rope descents, helicopter evac if you're really lucky. Always have a way out. Hospitals have generators. Big ones. Industrial diesel generators designed to keep life support systems running during blackouts. Are they still functional? Maybe, depends on how long they have been sitting, whether the fuel's degraded, whether anyone looted the copper wiring. But here's the thing, even if the generator is dead, the electrical infrastructure isn't. Hospitals have battery backup systems, UPS units, lead-acid battery banks, lithium arrays in newer facilities. You can recharge these with solar, wind, or manual crank generators. Isolated power grids. Hospitals are built with redundant electrical systems. You can power one wing without powering the whole building. Efficient, defensible. You're not broadcasting. I have electricity to every scavenger in the city. Medical grade wiring. Hospitals don't cut corners on electrical. The wiring is good, thick gauge, properly insulated. You can strip it, repurpose it, or just use it as is for your DIY power systems. You can have lights, heat, refrigeration for medicine and food. While everyone else is shivering in the dark, you're living like pre-collapse royalty. Here's the secret weapon of the hospital fortress. Nobody wants to go near it. Hospitals are scary post-collapse. They feel contaminated, they feel haunted, they feel like death. Every movie, every story, every cultural narrative says stay away from hospitals. They're where the sick people were, they're where it started. That fear, that's your moat. Let people be afraid, let rumors spread. The hospital's cursed, they're still infected inside. Anyone who goes in doesn't come out. You're not correcting them, you're encouraging it. Leave signs, biohazard symbols, quarantine warnings. Bloodstains, real or fake, doesn't matter. Make the ground floor look like a nightmare, because every person who's afraid to approach is one less person you have to fight. Fear is free defense, and you're weaponizing it. Okay, you've decided the hospital is your fortress. You understand why it's valuable. Now comes the hard part, actually taking it. Because here's the thing, you're not the first person to think, hey, free medicine and defensible structure. You're just the first person smart enough to commit to holding it instead of looting and running. So let's walk through the claiming process, step by step, with all the chaos, risk, and dark humor that comes with breaking into a building that might still have corpses in the ICU. Before you set foot inside, you watch, for days, find a vantage point, a nearby building, a parking garage, a rooftop across the street, somewhere with line of sight to all major entrances. You're looking for signs of occupation, lights at night, even flashlights, even candles, someone's home, smoke from vents or windows, someone's cooking or burning bodies. Either way, occupied, movement, patrols, sentries, people coming and going, noise, generators, voices, gunfire, dogs barking. If you see any of this, you have three options. Negotiate. Maybe they'll let you join. Maybe you can trade. Maybe they're reasonable people who will share resources. Wait them out. Maybe they'll leave. Maybe they'll die. Maybe they'll get overrun by someone else and you swoop in after. Attack. This is last resort. You're one person probably. They're a group probably. Unless you have overwhelming firepower, superior tactics, or a really good plan involving fire and choke points, this ends badly for you. You're also looking for signs of danger, bodies, fresh ones. If people are dying recently, something's still killing them. Disease, raiders, traps, each other. You want no part of that yet. Structural damage, collapsed sections, fire damage, floors that look unstable. You're not dying because you fell through rotted floor into a basement full of medical waste. Chemical smells. If you can smell bleach, ammonia, or anything sharp and acidic from outside, there's contamination, gas leaks, chemical spills, hazmat situations. You need a respirator minimum before entry, and you're looking for signs of emptiness. No movement for 48 plus hours of observation. Entrances covered in dust, debris, undisturbed. Windows intact and dark. No signs of forced entry or habitation. Wildlife moving freely in and out. Birds nesting in broken windows. Rats scurrying through doors. If animals are comfortable, humans aren't there. If the hospital looks empty, it's time to move. You're not waltzing through the front door. The front door is obvious, probably locked or barricaded, possibly trapped by previous looters or paranoid staff. The first place anyone checks, which means it's the most dangerous. Instead, you're looking for secondary entrances, emergency exits, side doors, fire exits, loading docks. These are industrial grade doors, but they're designed to open outward for evacuation, which means the locks are often simpler. Crowbar, bolt cutters, done, windows. Ground floor windows are risky, exposed, noisy to break. But basement windows, utility room windows, kitchen windows in the back, less visible, often already broken, easy access, ventilation ducts. If you're small and flexible and slightly unhinged, large HVAC ducts can be entry points. Hospitals have massive ventilation systems for air quality. Some ducts are big enough to crawl through. Just try not to think about what's been in those ducts. Underground parking. Many hospitals have multi-level parking garages connected to the main building via tunnels or stairwells. Parking garages are usually accessible. The tunnels are your way in. You pick your entry point, somewhere hidden, somewhere you can retreat from if things go wrong. You bring a weapon, melee preferred, crowbar, machete, baseball bat, firearms are loud. Loud attracts attention. You want quiet until you're sure you're alone. A light, flashlight, headlamp, chem light. Hospitals without power are dark. ICU level dark. You can't see your hand in front of your face, dark. A respirator or mask. Hospitals post-collapse smell, decay, mold, chemicals, biological waste. You don't want to breathe that. N95 minimum. Gas mask if you have it. A map. If you can find a hospital floor plan online, printed pre-collapse, bring it. Hospitals are mazes. You will get lost. A map is the difference between quick looting run and died of dehydration in the supply closet. You enter quietly, and immediately you're hit with the smell. It's indescribable unless you've been in a building full of death. Sweet, rotten, chemical. Wrong. Your hindbrain is screaming at you to leave. You ignore it, because you're not here to feel comfortable. You're here to claim a fortress. This is the slow part, the dangerous part. You don't rush, you don't assume, you clear the building like your life depends on it, because it does. Start with the ground floor. You're not staying here, but you need to know what's here. Check the lobby, usually trashed, overturned chairs, broken glass, dried blood, sometimes bodies. Avoid them, they're disease vectors. Note their locations, you'll deal with them later. Check the emergency room. This was ground zero during collapse. It's going to be bad. Gurneys everywhere, medical waste, possibly bodies in the dozens. If you see a body, don't touch it. Mark it, move on. Secure stairwell access. Find the stairwells, check if they're clear. Check if they're trapped. Stairwells are your lifeline. If they're blocked or dangerous, you need to know now. Move to the middle floors. This is where you'll live. Third or fourth floor ideally. Clear room by room. Knock on doors before opening. Listen. If you hear anything, movement, breathing, growling, back away. Barricade it. Move on. You're not fighting unknown threats in enclosed spaces. Prioritize key rooms, the pharmacy, your treasure room. Check locks, check if it's been looted. If it's not looted, you just won the apocalypse lottery. Supply closets, linens, gloves, disinfectants. Basics you'll need constantly. Nurse stations, computers, useless without power, but might have battery backups with data. Keys, maps, employee lockers with personal supplies, operating rooms, surgical tools, sterilization equipment, high-value items, patient rooms, beds, blankets, pillows, TVS you can scavenge for parts, bathrooms with plumbing that might still work. Check the roof. Look for solar panels, satellite dishes, antenna mounts. Check structural integrity. You're not falling through a rusted roof. Scout the surroundings. What buildings are nearby? What's the terrain? Where are threats likely to come from? Clear the basement if you're brave or stupid. Basements are dark, pitch black, no windows. Your flashlight is your only friend. Flooded. Maybe. Pipes burst, water tables rise. You might be wading through ankle-deep water, or worse. Full of utilities, generators, boilers, electrical panels, water mains. This is where the infrastructure is. You need to know what's down here. But basements are also where bad things hide. Squatters, raiders, animals, or just dark, wet, creepy spaces where your imagination runs wild. Clear carefully, back out if it feels wrong. You've cleared the building, you've chosen your floor. Now you secure it. Barricade the stairwells. This is critical. You don't need to block them completely, you need to control them. Bottom of your floor's stairwell gets a heavy barricade. Furniture, desks, gurneys, wire. Make it difficult to pass. Not impossible, you need to get through too, but slow. Attackers should be climbing, squeezing, making noise. Top of the stairwell below you, trap it. Tripwires, noisemakers, cans on strings. If someone's coming up, you want warning. Your floor's stairwell entrance is your choke point. One narrow doorway. One person can hold this with a spear, a pipe, a gun. Funnel attackers into a space where numbers don't matter. Secure windows. Ground floor. Board them up. You're not using them anyway. Your floor. Reinforce but don't block completely. You need some visibility and airflow. Use metal grates, chain link fencing, anything that lets you see out but keeps people from climbing in. Create a safe room. One room. Reinforced door. no windows, stockpile of food, water, medicine, weapons. This is your panic room. If the hospital is breached, if you're overwhelmed, you retreat here. You lock the door, you wait them out, you survive. Set up noise traps everywhere, cans, bottles, bells, wire. If someone enters the hospital, if they're moving through floors, you want to hear them before they reach you. You've done it. The hospital is yours. You're standing in a fortified third-floor wing, surrounded by medicine, tools, and defensible concrete. You have water from the roof, power from scavenged solar panels, a pharmacy worth its weight in gold. You're no longer a scavenger, you're a warlord, and this is just Fortress 1, the warehouse, not a hospital, not a military base, not some fortified government bunker that everyone and their desperate cousin is fighting over. A warehouse, specifically a distribution warehouse. The massive, unglamorous buildings on the outskirts of every city that nobody thinks about until their Amazon package is late. The sprawling concrete boxes that held the entire circulatory system of modern commerce. The places where everything, and I mean everything, moved through on its way to stores, homes, and businesses. And here's the beautiful part, everyone forgot about them. During the evacuation, people fought over grocery stores, they ransacked pharmacies, they looted gun shops and sporting goods stores, they fought and died over retail locations that held maybe a week's worth of supplies for a dozen people. Meanwhile, the warehouses sat there, quiet, forgotten, holding months, sometimes years worth of supplies for thousands. Because here's what most people don't understand about modern supply chains. Retail stores are just showrooms. They hold the absolute minimum inventory necessary to keep shelves looking full. Just-in-time delivery, efficiency, profit margins. The real stockpiles, the actual reserves of food, tools, medicine, clothing, electronics, and everything else that keeps civilization running, that's all in the warehouses, and now it's yours for the taking. Let me paint you a picture of what you're walking into. A distribution warehouse isn't like a storage unit or your uncle's garage. These are facilities the size of multiple football fields, 30-foot high ceilings, industrial shelving that stretches into the distance like metallic canyons, loading docks with dozens of bays, forklifts, pallet jacks, conveyor systems, and more importantly, contents. Food warehouses hold pallets upon pallets of non-perishables, canned goods, dried foods, rice, beans, pasta, cooking oil, spices, the stuff that doesn't rot, that was designed to survive months or years in storage. Sure, the fresh produce rotted within days of the collapse, the frozen food thawed and spoiled when the power died, but the dry goods, the canned goods, still perfectly edible. Medical supply warehouses hold everything hospitals need, but in bulk. Not just bandages and pills, but diagnostic equipment, surgical supplies, prosthetics, wheelchairs, hospital beds, monitoring equipment, everything that keeps medical facilities running, sitting in boxes waiting to be distributed to facilities that no longer exist. Tool and hardware warehouses are treasure troves, power tools, hand tools, lumber, nails, screws, wire, pipe, electrical components, generators, solar panels still in their packaging, everything you need to build, repair, or fortify anything. Clothing and textile warehouses solve your long-term apparel problems. Boots, coats, work clothes, blankets, tarps, rope, thread, needles. You're not going to freeze or go naked, and you've got trade goods that will never lose value because everyone needs clothes. General merchandise warehouses are like civilization's attic, everything from toys to electronics to furniture to books, batteries, flashlights, camping gear, sporting goods, random odds and ends that seem useless until you desperately need exactly that thing. The variety doesn't even matter as much as the volume. A grocery store might have 50 cans of beans, a warehouse has 50,000, a pharmacy has a few bottles of ibuprofen, a medical warehouse has literal tons. You're not scavenging anymore. You're not rationing. You're living in abundance while everyone else is fighting over scraps in burned out strip malls. But let's talk about why warehouses are strategically perfect, not just as supply dumps, but as fortresses. First, a location. Warehouses are built on the outskirts of cities, near highways and rail lines for easy logistics. This means they're isolated, not in the dense urban core where raiders congregate, not in residential areas where desperate neighbors will notice your presence. They're in industrial zones, commercial districts, places that were always dead at night even before the collapse. You have space around you, open ground, clear lines of sight. Anyone approaching has to cross hundreds of yards of parking lot with zero cover. You'll see them coming from inside. You'll have time to prepare, to hide, to defend, or to flee. Second, construction. These buildings are built for function, not aesthetics. Concrete and steel, minimal windows, usually just high up near the ceiling for natural light. Heavy rolling doors at loading docks that can be secured with industrial locks and bars. Thick walls designed to withstand weather, potential impacts from forklifts, and the weight of thousands of tons of inventory. You're not defending a wooden house with glass windows. You're defending a concrete fortress that was accidentally designed for siege warfare. Third, size. This cuts both ways, but hear me out. A massive warehouse seems impossible to defend alone or with a small group. Too much space, too many entry points, too many places for threats to hide. But you don't defend the whole warehouse, you claim a section. Think of it like the hospital strategy, but horizontal instead of vertical. Most warehouses are divided into sections, zones for different types of inventory, different temperature controls, different security levels. You pick one section, preferably near a corner where you only have 2 walls to defend instead of 4. You barricade the aisles leading to your section. You create a fortress within a fortress. The rest of the warehouse becomes your buffer zone, your early warning system. Fill it with noise traps, leave the lights off, make it a maze of toppled shelving and tripwires. Anyone trying to reach your secured section has to navigate through that nightmare while you wait in a defendable position with clear sightlines. Fourth, loading docks. These are your tactical advantage and your vulnerability, so you need to understand them. Loading docks are designed for trucks to back up, for cargo to be moved quickly in and out. They have massive rolling doors, usually a dozen or more per facility. They're ground level on the outside but elevated inside, with ramps or hydraulic lifts for moving pallets. Each dock is a potential entry point, but here's the thing, those rolling doors are heavy, industrial grade metal. They lock from the inside with serious hardware, and they're loud. If someone forces one open, you'll hear it across the entire building. You secure the docks you don't need, bar them, weld them if you have the equipment, block them with pallets of inventory stacked so high and heavy that moving them would take days. You keep one dock operational, your entry and exit point, your loading zone for moving supplies in and out. You control it, you guard it, and you make sure you can seal it quickly if threats approach. Fifth, inventory as building material. This is where it gets creative. You have thousands of pallets of goods. Each pallet weighs hundreds of pounds, sometimes thousands. Stack them. Use them as walls. Use them as barricades. Use them as obstacles. Create a labyrinth inside the warehouse. Narrow corridors between towering walls of inventory where only one person can walk at a time. Dead ends, switchbacks, multiple routes to your secure section so you can move freely but invaders get lost. You're not just living in a warehouse, you're reshaping it into a custom-built fortress using the very supplies you're protecting. Sixth, vehicles and equipment. Warehouses have forklifts, electric usually, but some run on propane, pallet jacks for moving heavy loads, scissor lifts for reaching high shelves, hand trucks, carts. These aren't just for moving inventory, they're force multipliers. A forklift can move a 2-ton pallet of goods into position as a barricade in minutes. A scissor lift gives you elevated positions for observation and defense. A pallet jack becomes a battering ram or a mobile shield. And if you can get fuel or charge the batteries, they're transportation. Forklifts might not be fast, but they'll carry loads no human can, and they'll do it while you're protected inside a metal cage. Seventh, long-term sustainability. This is where warehouses outshine almost every other location. You have supplies to last months or years depending on the size of your group. You have trade goods in volume. You can establish yourself as a supplier, not just a survivor. Other groups will come to you, not with threats but with offers, because you have what they need in quantities they can't get anywhere else. You become essential, and essential people don't get raided, they get protected, they get respected, they get power. You're not just surviving, you're building an economy, you're becoming the backbone of whatever new civilization emerges from the ashes. But here's the dark side of warehouses, the reason they're not perfect. They're obvious targets. Once people realize stores are empty, they'll think of warehouses. You're not the only one with this idea. The difference is timing. If you get there first, if you claim it and fortify it before the masses arrive, you win. If you're late, you're walking into a war zone. They're difficult to heat or cool. Massive open spaces with minimal insulation. In winter, you'll freeze without a strategy. In summer, you'll bake. You need to section off a smaller area, insulate it with inventory, use space heaters or fans scavenged from the warehouse stock. You're not heating the whole building, just your living quarters. They're isolated. The same advantage that keeps casual threats away also means you're far from potential allies, trade partners, or help if things go catastrophically wrong. You need transportation, you need communication equipment, you need a way to stay connected to whatever survivor networks develop. They attract attention when you start moving goods. If you're smart, you operate at night, you cover vehicles, you use side roads, you make it look like the warehouse is still abandoned even as you're living inside and running supply operations. But despite these challenges, warehouses remain one of the most valuable fortress locations in the post-collapse world. Because at the end of the day, survival isn't just about defense, it's about resources. And warehouses have more resources than anywhere else people forgot to fight over. So we've covered 4 fortresses: the hospital with its medicine and vertical defense, the water treatment plant with its control over the most critical resource, the distribution warehouse with its months of supplies and trade potential. There should be a 5th fortress, right? The power plant, the military base, the underground bunker, the farm, the factory. But here's the thing, I lied to you. Not about the fortresses. Those are real. Those strategies work. If you claim a hospital, a water plant, or a warehouse and you hold it properly, you'll survive when most people won't. I lied about the number, because the 5th fortress isn't a location. It's not a building you claim or a structure you fortify. The 5th fortress is the network. And this is where we get to the hard truth about post-apocalyptic survival that every lone wolf prepper refuses to accept. You cannot survive alone, not long-term, not in any scenario that's actually livable rather than just technically alive. You can claim the best hospital in the city, stockpile medicine for years, have solar power and rainwater collection and perfect defenses. But you're one person. You have to sleep, you have to eat, you have to maintain equipment, treat your own injuries, make decisions, watch for threats, and stay sane in total isolation. One mistake kills you. One illness with no one to help. One injury that incapacitates you. One night when you're too exhausted to stay alert and someone slips through your defenses. Or worse, you survive all of that and you simply go insane from loneliness. Humans are social creatures. Isolation is torture. People in solitary confinement break within weeks. You're signing up for years, possibly decades of that. The survivors who thrive aren't the ones with the best bunker or the most supplies. They're the ones who build networks, who find other survivors and establish trade, mutual defense, shared resources, and specialized roles. You hold a hospital, someone else holds a warehouse, a third group controls a water source, a fourth has agricultural land starting to produce, a fifth has mechanical skills and a workshop. You trade, you communicate, you support each other. When raiders threaten one fortress, the network responds. When one location runs short on supplies, others fill the gap. When someone gets sick, they go to the hospital fortress. When someone needs tools, they go to the warehouse. This is the 5th fortress, the connections between isolated survivors that transform scattered strongholds into a functioning community, the communication networks using scavenged radios and signal flags, the trade routes using carefully maintained vehicles and armed escorts, the mutual defense pacts and shared intelligence about threats. Because here's what happens if you don't build networks. You stay isolated in your fortress, you're surviving, but you're stagnant. You can't gather intelligence about what's happening beyond your line of sight. You can't access resources or skills you don't personally have. You can't defend against organized groups. You can't grow food in a hospital. You can't perform surgery in a warehouse. You can't generate power in a treatment plant, not long term. You're a target. Isolated fortresses are vulnerable. Networks are resilient. If one node falls, the others adapt. If one survivor dies, their fortress can be claimed and integrated by others in the network. But a lone survivor in a fortress? When you die, everything dies with you. You're not rebuilding, you're just dying slowly. Because civilization isn't buildings or supplies or even knowledge. It's cooperation. It's humans working together towards shared goals. It's division of labor and mutual support and trust. And if you're thinking, but people are dangerous, I can't trust anyone in the apocalypse, everyone will betray me for supplies, then congratulations. You've adopted the mindset that guarantees you'll either die alone or become exactly the kind of raider everyone else needs to defend against. Yes, people are dangerous. Yes, you need to be careful. Yes, you verify before you trust. But humans survived and thrived for hundreds of thousands of years through cooperation. The lone wolf is a myth. Wolves travel in packs. Humans build communities. The apocalypse doesn't change that. It reinforces it. So here's your real strategy, your actual fortress protocol. Claim a fortress, hospital, warehouse, water plant, whatever matches your skills and the opportunities in your area. Secure it, make it defensible, stockpile what you can, but don't stop there. Scout for other survivors, carefully, Observe them before making contact. Look for people who are building, not just looting. People who are planning for months ahead, not just today. People who show signs of organization and discipline rather than desperation and chaos. Make contact. Cautiously. Establish communication. Prove your value by offering trade, information, or assistance without making yourself vulnerable. Start small. Build trust gradually. Form alliances, mutual defense pacts, trade agreements, shared resource access. Create redundancy so if one fortress falls, the network survives. Establish rules. Not laws, you're not a government, but agreements. How disputes are resolved, how resources are shared, how threats are addressed, what behaviors get someone expelled from the network. Grow the network, carefully, quality over quantity. 10 reliable allies are worth more than 100 desperate mouths to feed. Specialize. You can't be good at everything. Let the mechanic handle repairs. Let the medic handle injuries. Let the farmer handle food production. Let the engineer handle infrastructure. You focus on your strength and rely on the network for everything else. And defend the network like your life depends on it, because it does. This is how you survive. This is how you rebuild. This is how scattered survivors in isolated fortresses become communities, and communities become towns, and towns become the foundation of whatever civilization emerges from the collapse. The hospital fortress gives you medicine and a defensible position. The water plant gives you control over critical resources. The warehouse gives you supplies and trade goods. These are your tools. But the network, the connections you build with other survivors, that's your future. Because when the dust settles, when the initial chaos of collapse fades into the long, slow work of rebuilding, the question isn't who had the best fortress, it's who had the wisdom to realize that the strongest fortress is the one you don't have to defend alone. The engine growls, the lights come on, the water flows, the supplies are counted and catalogued. You survived, but survival isn't victory, it's just the beginning. Now comes the hard part: living, building, connecting, trusting, growing something new from the ashes of what was lost. You're standing on the roof of your fortress, looking out over the empty city. Somewhere out there, other survivors are doing the same, looking, wondering, waiting. The question is whether you'll stay isolated, slowly dying in your concrete tomb of supplies and paranoia, or whether you'll light a signal fire and start building something bigger than yourself. The world ended, everyone evacuated, you stayed, and now you get to decide what comes next. Welcome to the Fortress Protocol. Welcome to the rest of your life. And if you made it this far, if you watched this entire guide, do me one last favor: share it. Not just for the algorithm though, yeah, that helps. Share it because somewhere out there is someone who needs this information, someone who's preparing, someone who's scared, someone who might actually need to use this knowledge someday. We can't know what's coming, but we can be ready, and we can make sure we're not ready alone. Stay alive out there, and I'll see you in the next one.